Welcome to Mountain Deer. My name's Rodney Elmer. It's been a long time since we did a Whiteboard Wednesday. This is one that is really good because it can help you understand deer movement patterns and how deer that don't even know other deer will steer where they walk by them. This is pretty incredible. What I did is I just drew myself a little map here. It's about, say, 20 miles long, the whole thing. Where we hunt, the deer migrate quite a ways sometimes to get to the yards in the wintertime when the snow gets deep. They all pull into a smaller, dense area where they can spend the winter. As the deer are coming out of the mountains and working their way down through, they'll have to deal with a variety of obstacles, right? They'll have to deal with roads, they'll have to deal with water, especially as things start to freeze, it'll be ice, so they won't want to cross that. Of course, they've gotten lots of traffic along the roads, lots of hunting pressure. In Maine, they've been hunted for almost a month straight, so they're really wary of roads. If a fella puts out, say, a tree stand, he has a parking spot along a road, walks out to it, and he spends quite a bit of time in that tree stand. A lot of the local deer will get really used to him coming and going from it, and they'll learn to avoid it and go around it. This happens quite a bit. We had about a 20-mile long valley. For the first 5 or 6 miles or better up the road, there was quite a bit of hunter pressure. And every parking spot where there was a logging road or something, somebody would park and then they would hike out it and go for a walk in the woods and then come back. So there was like these pressure spots all over the place along the road. Now the local deer get real used to going around things, and just like when you put a strange dog in your yard, it will go to all the places your dog goes looking for the scent and the tracks. Well, that's exactly what the deer that are way up in the mountains, and now they have to work their way down through the valley in order to get to the yard. What they'll do is they'll go around the pressure areas and work through some of the jungle where they can hide pretty well, and they know they won't run into things. And the local deer that live right there will establish a few spots where they like to move, where they like to cross roads. And as the snow accumulates and starts adding up, the other deer that are working their way down through, as they come down through this valley, will end up going where the locals go. So if you have a spot where a guy keeps going out and he constantly sits in one spot, all the local deer have been going around that. So the migration trails will end up forming around where all those tree stands were. This road had a tree stand every quarter mile, lots of hunters, either a pull-off or a tree stand of some kind, where people were walking out skid roads and checking. And the deer were literally going around all the tree stands all the way down through the valley, using that pattern to avoid all the people, or at least potential pressure as they went. The other thing that mattered like crazy is they usually come down out of the mountains to have less snow. And when they get to any real big water and it's frozen, especially newly froze, we could expect a migration trail to form along the edge of that as more and more deer work their way down the valley. They'll come on to other deer tracks as they work their way down in, and the locals will have taught them the best place to get down to the yard, and they'll have these little established trails. Now, where the ice was really deep and rugged, the deer were actually coming up onto the road and using the bridge, and then working their way up through, staying right tight against things in order to get to where they wanted to go. And you can use the people's habits and parking spots, the thickness of the woods around it, and they use that to get around everything. It was pretty amazing. The more time we spent, we saw quite a bit of this, and especially later in the season, as more and more deer started filtering down and coming out of areas and working down in, they can't help but walk on the locals' tracks. And the locals have been staying away from these tree stand road hot spots. They've been staying away from those and going right around everything in order to get to where they want to be. If I was going to spend much time hunting, and especially like stand hunting, I would have set up like a saddle hunt type thing where I'm only there for a little while, maybe even a climber, and go into the woods and look for the trail that's starting to accumulate in the snow, and then set up on that, and then be in different places every time. The other thing that seemed to really happen a lot is a lot of the older, bigger bucks would hang back some, and any spot where there wasn't much trouble and they felt pretty comfortable, they would cruise around and check out all the different trails, and wherever deer were formulating to get down in the bottom, they'd work their way down. They wouldn't go into the yard. A lot of bucks would hang back in kind of safety areas where they weren't going to run into too many people, but there was still plenty of local deer activity inside of those. They did that quite a bit. And then, of course, if there's any kind of feed like this cut, and it's close to some of that good cover that has pretty much uninterrupted, not too much human contact to get down into the yard, those are the places that I'd be hunting. But it was amazing how the local deer teach the other deer the safest places to walk.